This week's lesson focus, not the lesson focus, but the mission focus is on the North Asian Pacific Division, which is on the back of your Sabbath school lessons. Sometimes we don't refer to that quite often, and it's good to know where our 13th Sabbath offering is going. Again, it's good to have our Sabbath school panelists here. And Adria, you're doing well this morning? Would you lead off with our memory text this morning? We'll make sure your mic's hot.
And I will establish my covenant between me and you and your descendants after you and their generations for an everlasting covenant to be God to you and your descendants after you. Genesis 17:7.
Everlasting. Goodness, that's a long, long time with no ending, right?
Right.
That's a good thing. It's an everlasting covenant. The lesson starts out with the first of the three angels' messages in Revelation 14:6. It says, "Then I saw another angel flying in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach to those who dwell on the earth, to every nation, kindred, tongue, and people." So this covenant, this gospel message is meant for everybody. Isn't that right, Ann?
Yes, that's right.
Jews, Gentiles, everyone who has ever lived, the opportunity is presented to them to participate and be a part of this agreement. That's what a covenant is, isn't it?
Correct.
It's an agreement. We deal with agreements all the time. They've always, and this particular covenant has always existed. As a matter of fact, it existed. The plans were made prior to our existence. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Way before we ever got here, there was the promise of this covenant. As in always existing, as in having always been there, as in having been promised to us in Christ Jesus before time began. So most of our lesson this morning is talking about the everlasting covenant, and last week we actually talked about the history. Remember the history of Moses' history lesson, where Moses kind of went through the lineage, telling them how God had led his people up until this point. And oftentimes through the Old Testament, you'll hear the promises made to Abraham, and then to Isaac, and then to Jacob, showing the succession of leadership and how the baton is passed from generation to generation. That is important because it's important that people be mindful and kept aware of what that agreement is and how it affects us. Now, in a personal, when you were baptized, there was questions asked of you regarding the state of the church and your beliefs. Isn't that right? You remember that? And, as a Seventh-day Adventist, there are 28 fundamental, that is, basic beliefs that we hold true. Belief in the Bible, believe in Jesus Christ. You guys know them, all of those 28 fundamental beliefs. And those beliefs actually constitute an agreement with being a part of this church. Right? It's an agreement in public made before those who are witnessing your baptism, an agreement